What's up, everybody? Kristian Nylund here, host of the Sober Identity podcast. The very first rendition of the podcast, actually, no, scratch that. I tried to record a bunch of stuff yesterday. It didn't feel like that had enough hype in it. So we're going to give this another roll. I'm 42 years old. I live in Spokane, Washington. Super passionate about this subject of sobriety. I'm sick and tired of this being a bad thing. Being sober, why is it such a terrible thing? Why do you have to stand out like a sore thumb or stick out like a sore thumb? Why are you judged? Why do people care so much? Why are you not as cool as the rest of the drinking crowd? I just want to expose this topic on every level because it's been nagging on me for years and years and years of why can I not say the words, I don't drink, and not be met with ridicule, judgment, belittling, you name it. So I want to kind of describe why I started this podcast. Why did I start Sober Identity? Well, I can tell you why. It's because my identity for so many years, up until about a year and a half ago, was completely wrapped up in alcohol. I was known as the fun party guy. Kristian, oh, he is so fun to drink with. That guy can drink like a fish. He can party with the best of them. He's so fun to party with. All these things that people would say about me, and yet they're just so superficial, so worthless, so embarrassing to actually say out loud today. And so I wanted to shift that. I wanted to shift my identity. And I think, and I hope that there's a lot of other people out here who are listening who also want to shift their identity. They're tired of being that drinker. They're tired of alcohol. They're tired of what alcohol is doing to them on a day-to-day basis. They're tired of the control it has over them. And they're just tired of that being such a huge part of their lifestyle. And so when I was trying to create a name for this new endeavor, if you will, to be able to spread the word about sobriety and create a positive, supportive community around it, this one really clicked for me. Sober identity, right? Who is Kristian as a sober individual? I wanted to know. I wanted to see what that felt like. I wanted to see where that could take my potential. I always had this nagging feeling of, gosh, if I continue to go down this path of drinking, I'm never going to tap into my full potential. And just saying that out loud, it's a moment where it's like, wow, we are willing to continue to use this substance regardless of the consequences in reality. I mean, imagine living your life where you never actually reach your full potential. You never even tap into that full potential. That's something that you really need to consider moving forward. What is that motivation behind drinking? I think one of the biggest questions you can ask yourself is, why in the world do I drink? What's the point of me drinking, right? We can start to list all kinds of reasons around this. What is my identity? Why do I drink? And I think if you can spend some solid time on that question, if there's one thing you can do after listening to today's episode, write this down, jot it down. If you're someone who journals, which I highly recommend, by the way, write down on the very top line, why do I drink? And sit with that for a moment. Write anything you can think of, even if it's the lame reasons, right? Which everybody uses. Oh, but it's so fun. Oh, but everybody's doing it. And oh, it makes social environments so much easier to tolerate. Or, oh, I just love the taste of tequila. And I'm just so into how wine is made. And I just love to taste the nuances of wine. or I just love to get blacked out because to me, my life sucks right now or has always sucked. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep drinking my face off because I want to numb all my emotions. So just kind of start writing that list today. And it's going to be really eye-opening. It was for me. I journaled about this extensively because I wanted to get to the root cause. Like, why do I drink all the time? What's the real reason here? And the big ones for me, for example, was I thought I needed alcohol to be myself. That was the number one. And I can kind of backtrack and give some story behind that, but I'll keep going on my list here. So it was I needed it to be me. It allowed me to be me in social environments because I grew up, I was a really shy, quiet kid. That was me. Anybody who knew me back then knows that, yeah, Kristian, he was just a pretty quiet dude, really into sports, but like never partied, never do any of that. And so when I had my first drink, that really opened the door for me of like, whoa, I can be myself. I can laugh. I can dance. I can do all the things that typically I'm terrified to do as long as I have alcohol with me. So that was a big one on my list. The other few things on my list was I really enjoyed kind of the competition of drinking, which is really strange to write, but I've always been a competitive athlete growing up. And so for me, especially around other guys, other men, people I wanted to impress or become friends with, I used alcohol as the segue into that. Like I could sit down with somebody new, and if I was able to drink whatever they were drinking, if I could drink as much as they were drinking, if I could drink more than them, and I could continue to do that for days on end, all of a sudden I had this newfound respect from others, which is so terrible, but it's so true, especially with guys. It's like this badge of honor of, oh yeah, like, man, we finished 18 beers last night and we just smile and high five each other and think it's awesome, right? It's like this award, this medal we should have around our necks. But that for me was a way, because of being so quiet and also being very insecure, I loved that piece. It allowed me to connect with other people and become friends a lot quicker through drinking. And maybe that's something you guys can relate to too of, I get along with basically everyone, and certainly when there is alcohol involved, because it just takes away all the inhibitions, any stress you got going on, and it gives you like a really valid excuse to go, oh, I can just be crazy, fun, and wild, and people won't question it because we're all drinking. It's just a cool thing to use as an excuse. So that was a big factor in why I drank. I brought up the insecurity piece. That one has really been exposed for me recently. I've always been super insecure my whole life, and really tapped into therapy recently to where I have pinpointed a lot of reasons why, and also still trying to figure out how I can become less insecure. Well, alcohol was such a great way for me to feel less insecure, certainly in social environments. So that one was a big deal there. The insecurities I ran with also kept me from putting my foot down earlier when it came to becoming sober. I was deathly afraid of losing so many people in my life, my friends. Like, what am I going to do for fun? Am I going to enjoy my life? I have no idea. But deep down, I wanted to get rid of alcohol, but that insecurity piece was so heavy and so true. I was so nervous to just tell people, hey, I don't want to drink anymore. How does that look for our relationship? How does that look for my life moving forward? And so that was a big one on my list as well. And then obviously, I loved drinking on vacations. Like, I just loved to drink because it allowed me to completely check out from life. And it allowed me to just be really irresponsible too, which is terrible because there's so many times where I'd, hop in my car after being blitzed at night. Driving drunk was something that I did very consistently throughout my lifetime, thinking that was okay, and lots of other people do the same thing. So I justified it over and over and over again. And so I so whenever I had alcohol in me, it was like I just forget about anything. All my goals, any responsibilities I had in that moment, it was one thing, one motivator, and that was just let's drink as much as we can and let's check out from life as best as we can. And so, really sad, but really true. So, when I thought about getting rid of drinking, it was like, okay, vacations. What the heck am I going to do during vacation now? So very interesting to go through that list. And so I highly recommend doing that on your own, just because it's going to give you a nice picture to go, wow, either your reasons aren't that good, your reasons are really surface level, or some of the reasons might be really deep that you may need to really sit with and uncover emotionally of like, wow, I don't feel worthy. I don't feel secure. I'm scared about things. I don't know how to handle tough situations. A lot of those things can be very eye opening. So, highly advise you make the list today. So, now that we've talked about making that list of why we drink, I want to get back into why we become sober curious. What kind of starts that process? And I wanted to bring in my experience to give you basically an example of maybe what the timeline can be, what kind of things have maybe happened in your life that have brought you to this point. So for me, I've always been, so I will backtrack. When I grew up, all through high school, I was a really quiet, shy kid. I loved sports. Sports were my jam. I completely fell in love with both soccer and then basketball being my number one sport by far. Loved basketball, had a hoop in my driveway, fell in love with Michael Jordan, had my first pair of Air Jordans in second grade. Athletics, hoops, sports just really drew me in. And so I really dove into that all through high school, even. And I didn't drink in high school, I didn't touch anything. I don't really know why. There wasn't like a moment in my life at that time where, either one of my parents told me to not drink or if I had people around me that didn't drink. I've been trying to figure that whole situation out. But the one thing I can come up with is the sports. I loved being at the top of my game. I wanted to be really good. I wanted to be well conditioned. I just really wanted to be the best athlete that I could be. And so all through high school, I didn't touch it. I didn't touch alcohol. So that tells me there was something inside me who just really didn't want to be a drinker. And so we fast forward to my senior trip in high school. We go to Mazatlan, Mexico with a bunch of my high school friends. Majority of them drank, a couple of us didn't. And we went out to a bar one night and I was sitting next to my buddy who didn't drink at the time. And it was a moment where we just kind of looked at each other. Everyone else is, dancing on bar stools and having a good old time. And we're like, well, should we do this? And I've thought a lot about that moment. And so there I was, bartender passes me a Bacardi and Coke, rum and Coke, whatever. And I remember that moment being the moment, one of the first moments in my life where I gave up my power. I gave into something that at my core, I should have never given into. Because deep down, I've wanted to be a sober person. I never wanted to drink. It was ingrained in me for some reason. I don't know where it comes from, other than like I explained the athletic side of things. But deep down, I wasn't like super excited to jump into this new atmosphere of being a drinker, but I did, and I can tell you it has a lot to do with insecurity. I felt that I felt the pressure. I felt the need to fit in. and I wasn't quite comfortable with just being 100% me, being authentic, being like, nope, I'm not doing this. I don't want to be in this environment, and remove myself from the environment. So I gave in at the time. And of course, I loved it. Absolutely loved my first night of drinking. I look fondly back on that memory as a really fun night because all of a sudden I could fully be me. I wasn't insecure anymore. I was able to dance. I was able to go talk to strangers. I remember trying to make friends with anyone and everybody who wanted to listen to me that night. It was hilarious, but it just went to show that there was something within me that just felt like I couldn't do that normally. And so the scary part there then became that alcohol and being myself went hand in hand. I felt like I had to have alcohol to be me. And then everybody around me, all my friends were like, wow, like, dude, you're so much fun now that you're drinking. And then I was like, cool, I'm getting all these accolades and positive reinforcement that this is a great thing for me. And so that's what kicked off my 20 plus years of drinking, was that moment. I enjoyed that feeling just like everybody else, right? Alcohol is it just completely calms your nervous system. Just inhibitions are gone. It's an awesome dopamine hit. You feel good right after having a drink or two. So it becomes very addictive in nature. And for someone who is really afraid to be themselves, you can imagine how nice it is to have that crutch that I can always lean on of like, yes, crack that beer. Like as soon as, yeah, I'm stressed out now and don't feel comfortable, but as soon as I have my first IPA, this is going to be a lot more fun. So that kicked off my drinking, and it slowly started to ramp up over time for me. Senior trip, and then I went off to college. I still had that same mentality of I wanted to get the best grades. I still wanted to be at the top of my game, but alcohol was there. It was more of I'd party on occasion, overdo it on occasion. Was I drinking during the week and missing classes? Hell no. I still had a good, solid tunnel vision to the end because I had a career goal in mind and I wanted to be at the top of my class for that. And alcohol at the time wasn't going to hinder me from getting there. So my relationship was okay through college. I still kept the responsibilities and goal setting intact, which was awesome. I'm so thankful for that looking back. And then once I graduated from college, I got my first job out of school. And I felt this new freedom in that. I felt like, okay, I've reached this end goal of mine. Now I'm a free man. I can start to do whatever the heck I want to do. And unfortunately, that included a lot of boozing, lots of it. I started to really party pretty hard. I was living in downtown and there was tons of partying going on consistently. You know, I'd work, which I worked out of town a lot, come back, and then it would just be a total party scene on my days off. I was still late 20s, into my early 30s, and I thought I was just having a grand old time, just drinking like everybody else. Yeah, I was pushing the limits, but again, like I talked about before, I enjoyed that aspect. I enjoyed being a really good drinker. I enjoyed being able to push those limits and be the best at that, even though it took such a toll on me over time. So my relationship with alcohol started to transition at that time. I would say late 20s, early 30s is when this really started to shift. Noticeable shift in how I started to drink. And it became a point of now a lot of those issues that I jotted down on my why do I drink list became very apparent, right? The insecurities, the inability to handle stressors in my life, just drinking just to be the best at it, just pushing the limits and not really understanding the why. But there was a lot of hurt and pain inside me that I didn't really pinpoint at the time. And I've been working through that recently to really show that, wow, there was a lot that I was hiding from and covering up through alcohol use. And so then I would just feel like I always needed to drink, and it brought me into a very depressive state, which is so ironic, right? Because I've been drinking a depressant this entire time. I'm also not healing or addressing a lot of those deep emotional core wounds. So for me, I just needed that dopamine hit, that constant substance going to just keep myself alive and try to keep myself somewhat happy. But deep down, there was tons of loneliness there, tons of just trauma in general. And also, I'm doing something that at my core, I really didn't want to do in the first place. So it's very interesting to go back and think about that whole stretch. Alcohol has definitely been a huge issue in my lifetime. And I was in complete denial for a long, long time in regards to that. And I wanted to talk about denial for a moment here because I've seen it with myself when it came to drinking. I've seen it with people around me when it comes to drinking. And it's such a psychological factor when it comes down to it in this type of situation. So for me, it was interesting. I would justify it over and over and over. I'd go on and on. I'd be drinking and I'd be like looking around at everybody else. Well, everybody else does this. Everybody else is hungover. Everybody else is drinking like crazy. Like, what's the problem? I don't have an issue. And I also told myself that, okay, if I end up having an issue with my job, if it starts to affect my job, then I'll start to taper off, and then it will, then I can kind of address it at that point. But I pushed it to the point where it started to affect that too, and I was still in denial of like, no, I'm still good. I'd laugh. I'm like, oh, you hear the term functional alcoholic, and it's like, oh yeah, like you'd be, amazed at how many people around you are that prototype functional alcoholic, right? And I certainly was one of those looking back. I mean, I've got a great career, I've accomplished a lot, but in between all of that and things that nobody else saw behind closed doors, I mean, it was ugly. I mean, I'd be, dragging myself out of bed, sweating, anxiety ridden, to show up to work the next day. And just, it became so normalized. And I know there's a lot of people listening that have been through that same situation, right? Where you're like, ooh, I have definitely shown up to work hungover. I've definitely tried to parent my kids after partying with my friends on a Saturday night. My Sunday is completely ruined, but again, you justify it. And that denial piece just keeps creeping in of like, no, I don't think I really have a problem, even though all the signs are there, right? Everything around you, like if you really started to look at your family lineage, alcoholism is rampant generationally. I mean, I've talked to so many people, and you can just utter the word alcoholism, someone in that family is affected by it. Guaranteed. I guarantee it. There's some sort of alcoholism, or alcohol has affected something. So there now we can go, well, it's staring you right in the face from a family standpoint. There's family issues. Alcoholism runs on various sides of the family. Maybe you've had a close family member who's an alcoholic or has struggled with booze. And you're like, well, it's not me. I can control my drinking. I'm just gonna ignore all these signs. No big deal. And then now here you are pushing the limits with alcohol, and you're just flat out denying that it's a problem, even though you have all these telltale signs around you. So I did the same thing. There's alcoholism runs in my family, and I was surrounded by a lot of drinkers and people, family members who drink. And so you just start to justify it. It becomes okay. And so those things are worth looking at because they're all red flags that are waving right in front of your face, right? And it's definitely time to maybe pay attention to that, um, because you just don't want to deny the fact that you do have an issue with alcohol. So the last thing I want to touch on this first episode today is your curiosity, right? Why are we listening to this episode? Why do we care about listening to some dude talk about becoming sober. And I mentioned previously in the episode here, as far as what led me to finally getting to the point of being sober. This was a bit of a process for me, you guys. This, I would say, has been 4.5 years in the making. And what got me to this point was I was sick and tired of drinking. I pushed the limits over and over and over. And I think subconsciously I did that on purpose. I wanted it to hurt so bad to where I finally had a reason to quit. And luckily, I didn't push it too far to where I got myself deep into trouble, but I was very, very close many, many times. And I have plenty of stories about that for a later day. But I finally got to a point where enough is enough. I had reached my rock bottom, if you will. And I said, that's it. It's time for me to put this away. And I, at that time, didn't make the decision to put it away for good. It was like, it needs to end. Regardless of duration, this needs to end now. So I started my first sobriety stint. This was 6.5 months I made it, which was awesome, incredible, eye-opening, wonderful. I felt great. Mental clarity was there. I was sleeping wonderfully, super great shape, like just really enjoying it. But the problem was I still had this lingering thought of, ooh, am I going to fully enjoy my life without alcohol? And I got to the point where I went, you know what? If I can control my drinking, or no, if I can stop drinking for that long, then I can certainly control my drinking, right? And I know there's plenty of people listening that probably had the same discussion in their heads, right? Like, oh yeah, like I made it dry January, or I went 2 months. Like I could certainly just have one or two here and there. And that was my thought process. And I still was insecure in this decision. I was like, man, I have a hard time telling people I'm not drinking anymore. It was more of like, oh, I've stopped. I'm now stringing together all this time. And so I decided to drink again. And of course, within 3-4 days, bang, floodgates are open. I'm right back to where I am, hungover, drinking to stop hangovers. Like it was not good. And so that's when this like ping pong scenario would happen where it's like, okay, I drink for 2, 3, 4 months, 5 months, then go back and not drink for 3, 4 months, then go back, then go back, then go back and forth constantly. And it was always because it was just this inner battle, this inner turmoil of, oh, can I fully commit to this? Can I fully commit to this? So I constantly battled with deciding, okay, am I going to finally quit alcohol for good? Like, is that where I'm at? Is that going to be like a total gamble of whether or not I'm going to enjoy my life anymore? It was really difficult to finally just say, that's it. I'm done with this. I want to be done. I want to wrap this up. But it was terrifying. And, we talk about fear. Fear is so real in sobriety, right? We're so scared to make a change into the unknown. The change is terrifying. And for me, it was. I can say that. That was the biggest hurdle, was just being too scared to go, enough's enough. I'm done. I'm not going to drink anymore. And so I went on and on and on, back and forth in different sobriety stretches. And finally, January 1st, 2023, that was the day I said, I'm done drinking for good. I don't want to drink anymore. I had initially decided that it was going to be alcohol-free 2023. So I wanted to make it the whole year. But deep down, I knew I wanted to be done. I wanted that to be the thing that kickstarted me to be completely sober for the rest of my life. And I made it. I made it the whole year. It was not easy. There was a lot of struggle points. I would say the biggest hurdle was month number 8, 8.5. That's when those thoughts kept creeping in of like, ooh, am I sure that this is the right way to go? I'm feeling a lot of FOMO. I'm feeling like I'm not going to fit in. I'm feeling socially that I'm excluding myself. I'm going to be miserable. But it was that mindset that needed to shift, right? It was like, no, you're almost there. And look at how much better your life has become. I mean, the improvements in my life have been insane. Just to be able to get rid of alcohol as a focus in my life has opened the door to all kinds of other things that I can focus on. There's no mental bandwidth to be used on when am I going to drink? How much can I drink? Should I not drink? Did I drink too much? You're constantly having this battle in your head, and so getting rid of that was so empowering. And so I made it the full year. Once I hit the year mark, it was game on. I said, my life's gotten so much better. Leaving alcohol in the dust isn't nearly as bad as I thought. And being submersed in the sober community has been huge. Just shifting who you're hanging out with and hanging out with the type of people who understand why alcohol is such a negative thing and why you really don't need it in your life anymore has been a total game changer. And so it's really empowered me to do what I'm doing here and starting this podcast of just trying to share that message with everybody and offer support. So if there's someone out there who's listening who's like, God, I really want to get rid of alcohol, but I'm terrified. I don't know how. I don't know what to do. Like, how's it going to affect my life? All those questions that you need answers for. That's why I'm here. That's why the whole sober community is here. So tap into this show, continue listening. You can do this. I am telling you from experience. Yes, it will be difficult. But again, everything in life that's worthwhile is difficult, right? If we want to get really good shape, we got to go feel the pain in the gym. If we want to lose weight, we need to stop eating the things that give us so much pleasure, short-term pleasure, right? If we want to accomplish something big, it's going to take all those hours and days and months of work, hard work and effort. It's the same thing with sobriety. So just be patient with yourself. This isn't a thing where you start and all of a sudden you're sober. Like I said, and how I described my journey, this was multiple years in the making, but I wouldn't want it any other way. That was my path. That was how this was supposed to happen. And now I can look back on that and be so grateful, so appreciative of that journey. Now that I can sit here today, over 510 days sober as of today, which is so cool. But that was one day at a time, right? We talk about that in the recover and sobriety world, one day at a time. And it's so true with anything, right? Just go into every day saying, today I'm not going to drink. I thought that was great advice that I heard in this community is not that I'm done drinking forever, but I'm not going to drink today, right? Use that. I'm not going to drink today. And the days will start to stack and they will accelerate as time goes on. Now, I mean, as soon as I hit a year, the days now, it's just like you're stacking 100 days at a time. And it just goes like this, boom, 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 boom. Because now my life is so much better. I just feel great. I'm accomplishing a lot more. Physically, I feel wonderful, sleeping better. I can go on and list all the benefits of not drinking, but the majority of you listening today, you know the benefits. That's why you're here. You're like, I'm curious. I'm really curious how I could do this. So let's make this happen, you guys. Keep on listening. I'm so stoked you're here. I'm happy to help. Reach out anytime. Please follow my pages both on Facebook, Sober Identity, and then on Instagram, Sober Identity, all one word. Happy to support you. Reach out, DM, email. I don't care. I'm here to help because this is something I can give back to the community that has helped me tremendously. So thank you all and look forward to the next talk. Take care.